Hi, I'm coming to you today on a very sunny / cloudy day, and I wanted to talk about something called Carpe Diem. I'm sure you've heard the term. I just looked it up on the internet, and it means, in modern kind of translation, it means seize the moment or seize the day. And today we think of seize the day. I think modernly we think of opportunity. And so I have an opportunity that I thought I would share with y'all and challenge you if you're over, 40. Maybe you're feeling like life is passing you by. Maybe you've been busy with your career or your children, and now you're 40, 50 years old, and you're like, now what? What am I going to do, The opportunity that I've been given is something that probably will not work out. And I don't mean to sound negative. I just mean the odds of it are very slim, but I'm seizing the day anyway. So I want to challenge you to do the same thing. Here's my story about this particular thing. And I told some of this way back, like 2 years ago on a video. And I may have mentioned it since. And if you're a friend or family, just click out of this video. You've already heard it and you're bored with it. So, what happened is when I had my blog years ago, when I first started my blog, it was like 2008, 2009. And I got to know this girl named Colette, and she was a photographer, real young, like 25. There was an opportunity online to join a group of people in November, the month of November, 30 days, and write a book. Write a book in 30 days. Well, I've never written a book, never even thought about writing a book. I don't write anything. And I don't know why I decided to do it. And we decided to do it together, so to speak, even though she lived in another town. And she dropped out like on day 5. She was too busy. But I, for some reason, stuck with it. I signed up online, and there were thousands and thousands of people that do this every November. But anyway, I'll link the website below if you're interested in looking into it. But long story short, I seized the day back then and said, I'm doing it. So November 1st, I sat down at my computer, and I had in my mind what I was going to write. You could not have written a single word until November 1st. And so I had it in my mind, loosely, that I was going to write the story of Scott and I's trips to Paris. Because to us, they're just full of great stories. But I sat down on that November 1st morning and I decided to read the rules one more time before I started typing, because I'm a very big rule follower, and the first thing said, the work must be fiction. And I'm like, fiction? I don't write fiction. What is this? I can't write fiction, blah, blah, blah. So I'm sitting there, and I'm just staring, and I'm so upset, and I was about to get up and quit. And I sat there for about 30 minutes, and an idea just came to me, and I started writing. Well, when you have to write, it was 50,000 words that you needed to write in 30 days. Well, when you're writing that quickly, you can't go back and read what you wrote the day before. You just have to keep going. You can't edit. You can't do anything. I did edit spelling, as it underlined something, I would fix the spelling. But other things, I just had to keep going and keep going and keep going. And I was basically making this story up as I went along. And I finished in 30 days. I wrote a novel, short novel, 50,126 words. It had a very good beginning. It had a very, very terrible middle and even a worse ending. But it was a complete story. I should write them. Sit down and read the whole thing. So I read it. And it wasn't as horrible as I thought, but it was certainly really pretty bad. So I put it back on the shelf because the job of editing it was so enormous, and I knew the pain and the blood, sweat, and tears it was going to take, and I had no reason to do it. I had no aspirations to get published. That's for other people, blah, blah, blah. Well, last June, this is 5, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 4 years later, last June, I had the graduation party for my daughter. And this friend of ours showed up that had moved away, showed up with his son that was graduating with Lexi out of the clear blue. We were not expecting him. We did not know he was coming. It was such a cool surprise. And we were like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. So we were chatting later that evening. And I said, how's Colorado? And he was telling me all about it. And I said, so what business are you in now? And he said, I'm still doing the same thing. And I said, the same thing you did when you lived here? And he said, yeah. And I said, I thought you changed businesses. I thought that's why you moved. And he goes, no, I'm still in the book business. And I remembered that he works for a major publisher in the United States. And he said, he said, yeah, I'm still in the book business. And I said, I wrote a book once. And he goes, what? Like, he couldn't even believe it. I mean, if you knew me, like, you kind of do know me, I'm sure you're shocked. And he said, tell me about it. And I said, no. And he goes, no, tell me the story. So I gave him like a 1-minute synopsis of the book. And he said, do you have it somewhere? I said, yeah, it's on a shelf in my bedroom. And he goes, no. Do you have it on the computer? And I said, oh yeah, it was typed. He says, well, I want to read it. I said, no, you're not reading it. It's terrible. And he goes, no, I really want to read it. I think you've got something. I said, no, you don't understand. I wrote it in 30 days. It's terrible, blah, blah. Long story short, he said, okay, I want you to take the summer and I want you to work through it and edit it and just get it in decent shape and send it to me. He said, don't worry about what it sounds like. He said, just edit through it and send it to me. He said, I might have someone that's willing at least to read it, a publisher that's at least willing to read it. And so I did that. I decided to go for it, and I spent the summer rewriting the book. Totally. It was a nightmare. It was blood, sweat, and tears. It was terrible. And I finally got it to the point that I felt like I could send it to him, and it took everything in my power to push send on my computer to send it to him. Well, I did. He called me and he said, I'm going to be in town. This is months later. And he said, I'm going to be in town. I want to meet with you. But right now I want you to start rewriting it again. I said, okay. So I started rewrite number 2. He came in town. He was here. And we met for an hour, a couple hours. And we talked about plot. We talked about characters. We talked about ideas. And he said, go finish. He said, I want you to rewrite it again. So I took a couple months and rewrote it completely through again. Wasn't as difficult as the first time. And then at Christmas, he read my second rewrite. He said, you've made so much improvement. Start on your third rewrite. I'm like, okay. Because he told me first novelists, I don't even want to call myself that, but first-time writers will sometimes rewrite a book 10 times, So I said, okay, so I started rewrite number 3. And my book, by virtue of the type of story it is in 2 very distinct parts. So I finished the first half of rewrite number 3. He called and he said, I'm going to be back in town. This was last month. And he said, where are you? And I said, I'm almost through with part 1. And he said, send it to me before I come. I'll read it on the plane and we'll discuss it when I get there. So I sent it to him. He met me when he got back in town and he said, that was so much improvement. He said it was like a totally different person wrote it than that wrote the first 2. So I was really encouraged. And then he said, now get part 2 done. This is third rewrite. And I said, okay. And I said, but I need a deadline. I need pressure. And he said, okay, May 1st. This was in February, the middle of February. He said May 1st. And I said, great, love it. I don't know if I'm going to make it. I mean, so many things have happened in my life, but this has been a really good distraction. And all this to say, I'm spending all these hours and all this time on something that probably nothing will happen with it. But I felt like it was an opportunity that was handed to me that some editor, whenever him and I feel like it's in okay shape, some editor's willing to at least read it. You know, when you usually send a book, especially a new author, it goes in the slush pile. They go in the slush pile once in a while and dig through and try to find something, okay? Mine's actually going to be read as soon as, you know, when he sends it. So I felt like that was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. But the chances are so slim, but I'm going to do it anyway, because I will always regret if I don't try. I will always say, what if I had tried? What if I had tried? So with no experience and no aspirations of this, I'm doing it anyway because I'm 53 years old, almost 54, like real soon. That sounds so old. If I'm gonna do it, it's, you know, get with the program, you know, do it now. So I'm about to go sit at my table and pound away on my laptop and keep working on part 2. And then hopefully I can do one more much quicker rewrite, because I added a character and that threw the whole thing off, but it really needed some meat and some drama and more tension. He kept telling me it needs more tension. Hopefully I can do one more after this and it'll be ready for someone to read it, and then they'll either say, no, it's not, we're not interested at all, or they'll make me start rewriting it from a whole nother viewpoint. So I don't know. But my whole point of telling you this is seize the day, seize the moment. If you have an opportunity, don't let it slip you by. Go ahead and take it. Whether you think it's going to turn into anything or not, you never know. And I am throwing this out there to you because as soon as I put this on the internet, just my personality is I have got to get this rewrite finished, because now I've thrown it out in front of people. Not that I think I have to be published. That's not why I'm throwing that out to you, but that I need to finish this and see it through to the end and not let my difficulties of my life, my busy life, interfere. Because that's the whole Carpe Diem. So if you have something you've been thinking about or wanting to do and just not sure or shy or scared or feel like you're not talented enough, try it anyway. Because there's one thing I've kind of learned is the more you do something, the better you get. Just like playing a musical instrument, playing the piano, whatever. The more I write, the better I get, but only comparing myself to me, because when I pick up a novel in my bedroom and I start looking at it, it really depresses me because my book doesn't sound like that. It doesn't sound like a professional novel. But my friend kept telling me, don't compare your beginning to someone else's end. You just work against yourself. Don't worry about the Stephen Kings of the world or the Danielle Steeles or the people that are so prolific and write constantly. They didn't start out that way either. Now, I do think a lot of people have natural talent. I do not have natural talent for this. Oh my gosh. But I'm sticking with the old saying that it's 10% talent and 90% hard work. I think I can say I've got 10% talent, but it's 90% hard work, and that's what it really is, and that's what it boils down to. So I'm going to stop right now and go do some more writing. Talk to you later. Bye.